Hello there. I am so excited today to have on the Sick Career podcast Hadi Mendez. I met Hadi as I meet everybody nowadays on LinkedIn. I saw a great post of hers shortly after she was unfortunately laid off from her time at Salesforce that what really touched me. It showed that she was taking it with the right attitude, the right mindset, and also taking action. And also, she included a picture of herself, which was a nice supportive picture, which I think you got lots of views and likes, and we can talk about that post and what you thought about that post. But was at Salesforce for 2 years. She was head of equality, worked in DEI space, and I'll hand it off to you to tell our listeners a little bit more about who Hadi is.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that nice introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Hadi. Nice to meet you. I am based in Brooklyn, New York.
Woo, Brooklyn.
At Brooklyn is in the house. As Alan mentioned, I most recently was employed by Salesforce. I was the head of equality at Slack. Shout out to my peeps at Slack and at the Office of Equality. Hello. And yeah, that was my most recent position. I've spent probably the better part of my career at the intersection of tech and finance. And I've had about a 5 year stint in nonprofit, and I can talk about that too. It was a very good time in my life. And I think diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been in the heart of everything, at the center of everything that I've done over the years.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And talk a little bit about, so I saw you with your post at Salesforce. You were there a little bit north of 2 years, correct?
Actually, I got laid off on my 2 year anniversary, as luck would have it. And Alan, I had a whole post with pictures and everything to say, yay, it's my 2 year anniversary. And here's the things that I love about working at Salesforce. And then I had to write a different post.
Wow, that's crazy. But what really shocks me about you getting laid off, and so many great, talented people are getting laid off, is when I spoke to you last week, when we got to know each other a little bit more, you were actually promoted two times in your 2 years at Salesforce. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, do you want me to tell you kind of how that happened?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. So I was hired as a principal customer success manager into the MuleSoft part of the business. So I actually worked at MuleSoft first. Shout out to the Muleys in the house. And I was a customer success manager there for a little over a year. And in that 14-month time frame, I was promoted to senior principal CSM. And that was in February of 2022. And then in May of 2022, I applied for the head of equality position at Slack, and that was a director position. And so I ended up getting promoted again, and I went up another level, and I was part of the senior not customer success, employee success team at Slack. So I went from customer success to employee success, always focused on success, Alan.
Yes. But getting promoted once in a 2 year period is pretty impressive at Salesforce or some of these other big tech companies. And I've managed lots of people, I've promoted lots of people, but to get promoted twice in a 2 year period clearly indicates to me as an outsider, and I'm sure you would agree, that you are an outstanding employee. It is very rare for employees to get promoted once in 2 years, let alone twice in 2 years. So you have this track record. Lots of people are supporting you because to get promoted, not only do you have to make the impact, but you need people in the room when you're not there
The sponsorship. Yep.
fighting for the promotion. So you had sponsors, you had advocacy, and you had the performance. Without going into lots of details of your situation, and I'm sure you've spoken to lots of people across Salesforce, and I'm talking to people at Google and Microsoft and Meta. What's like in your mind? You were like kicking ass. You're also a diverse individual, a Latina woman, where Salesforce and all these tech companies are talking a big game that they want more diversity and they want to not only acquire more talent but retain the talent. What was going through your mind when you heard this news? Because to me, as an outsider, this just blows me away. You're a strong performer. You moved across divisions. You got promoted, and you're a Latina woman. And Salesforce, one of their five values is equality. So
Yeah.
what was your first like reaction? Like, how did you make sense of this decision?
I think, I think what I, as I reflected on it, what occurred to me is that, this was something that was really going to impact everyone, that did in fact impact everyone, because I know so many people from across the organization. I think there was maybe a little bit of confusion that people thought like, oh, it's going to be the sales team, or it's going to be, a certain population of employees that's going to be impacted. And what I think we discovered that morning, January 4th, or that afternoon, by the time, so many people shared and posted what was going on, I think we discovered that it affected everybody from across the board in all different positions. And the other thing is that, I think there was also some indication maybe early on that it's like, oh, it's going to be the newer people or the people that were hired during COVID. And it's like, nope, it
It's
ended up
not.
being people that have been there 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It didn't really matter. It was men, women, people of color, white, older, younger, newer, tenured. It didn't really matter. Everyone was seemingly equally impacted by what happened.
So did it just seem like either to you or to other friends and colleagues that it's just like a game of Russian roulette almost? That they're spinning the do you know what Russian roulette is? Have you ever heard of it?
I do, of
Yeah.
course, yes.
Um like where you spin the holster, and if you're like 1 out of 6, well, there was only I think 10% of people at Salesforce laid off. But did it just seem random to you and other people going through this? Like there was nothing you could have done differently here.
It's a good question. I'm sure it's a question everybody asks themselves. I actually also equally ask myself that question, like what could I have done
Yeah.
different? It's like when someone breaks up with you and you're like, what did I do?
Yeah.
I have to retrace my steps and figure out where I went wrong. But no, it would be a mistake, I think, to think that it's something you did, or to take it
Yeah.
personally and believe that it was something you did wrong that led to this. I do feel, I don't know if it was Russian roulette exactly. I'm sure there was some method to the madness, but I
Yeah.
do feel that it would be a huge mistake for anyone that's been impacted by layoffs at Salesforce or anywhere else to at this juncture believe that it was something that they did. I think a lot of it is just chance, bad luck, misfortune. And in some ways, maybe it's a blessing. Maybe there's something better for you out there.
Yeah.
And this gives you the opportunity to discover that. So it's not all like, I don't know, sadness and despair. I think there could be a lot of hope and goodness that could come from this.
Totally. And that's what I noticed on your post, that you were positive, that you had a good attitude about that. So talk to me about that post that you made that I think got, I don't know, I can check it out in terms of how many views it got. But tell me what your mindset was after you heard this news and how you digested it, and then what your next steps were.
Yeah, I'll be honest, there was a lot of indication that something like this could happen. So I was a little bit mentally prepared that it could happen to me, since, it could happen to anybody. I was mentally prepared that it could happen to me. My hope when I thought it could happen to me was that, oh gosh, I hope like from a medical insurance perspective, we're covered, because that to me is like the most important thing. And so that was like first and foremost my priority. So I've like quickly scanned what the service package looked like. And I'm like, okay, we have a little time here. And then I kind of was like, okay, like it's a new day. And what do I want to do in my day today? And how do I want to be today? And who do I need to reach out to? And, the one thing is, because we all found out in an email, it was not easy to know who else was impacted. So you had to kind of wait for people to tell you, because there was no way for you to uncover it. Like people internally to Salesforce could tell that we got laid off because we no longer appeared in Slack or in the directory, like we were gone.
Right.
But those of us that were gone had no way of knowing who else was gone, because we didn't have access to that. So, it was like every day it was like, oh my God, you too. And, that's kind of how we discovered that other people were impacted. But, as it relates to that post, I didn't post it the same day that I found out. I waited like a day or two, because I wanted to process it also. And I wanted to also like kind of reflect a little bit and, just kind of really be honest and candid. That is like one thing that I try to be known for, is to keep it real with everybody, with people that I meet and people that know me and don't know me. And so I wanted to be authentic and honest in this post and say, yeah, I was disappointed with what happened, and I'm excited of what else could come out of this, because surely there's going to be so many things that come out of this for people. And, maybe I'm one of the people that ends up in a better situation and, in a better role, or, something happens that kind of leads to sort of a greener pasture for me. So I want to leave room and space for something like that to happen and invite that actually to be the case. And so that's kind of what I focus on for the post.
Yeah. And I think this is the post that you did.
I think so.
Where you're smiling, you have a good attitude. I liked it. I should have probably actually loved it. Let me change that to love. And
I actually cut my hair like the day that I got laid off. I had a hair appointment beforehand, and so I had just gotten my hair cut, so I looked like really nice because I had just gotten it cut.
But you got like 1,254 reactions, which means that you probably had like 150,000 people that have looked at this, or north of 100,000, definitely. So you got lots of reaction there. You got my attention. And then you proceeded with lots of other great posts on LinkedIn, and you've gotten out of some of the noise that is on LinkedIn, because you have 59,000 tech employees laid off, but yours are getting lots of traction because you're being authentic. Like this one's a great post as well. And then like this last one before I get off it, I love your post here with this mug. Tell people here that don't speak Spanish, like myself, and there's a mug there. What does that mug mean, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, this is a mug that I've owned for some time. I didn't get it for purposes of the layoff or anything like that. It just says, it's in Spanish, and it says "No me importa," which means I don't care. And it's kind of like, I think it's just like sometimes you can't like be so invested in everything. Like it's just hard as a person to exist and be so invested in everything that happens. And sometimes you just have to be like, I don't care. Like I can't be like wrapped up in everything. And anyway, so it's not really a reflection of the layoff or like my attitude about work or anything like that, because I do care quite a bit. But it's just sort of like, there's a part of me that just doesn't care about some things. I don't know. It might be something trivial, but like, I kind of pick and choose what I care about. And this kind of reminds me to, like, you can't get all riled up about everything, Hadi. Sometimes you just have to like not care. And so anyway, so I think it's a healthy balance, and I try to remind myself about that.
That's great. So you post this stuff, you have such a great attitude. You probably have a lot of inbound people reaching out to you, myself one of them, but lots of people, lots of opportunities. Tell me about what your approach has been in the last couple of weeks, because you want to get hired again, right? You talked about like insurance is important to you. Stability, I would imagine, is important to you. So what steps are you taking so that you land on your feet in as good, if not a better opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, first and foremost, I am physically taking care of myself. I actually just posted something today about how I'm really playing with diet, exercise, and sleep, and making sure that I am, getting a good balance of all of that, because that keeps me well. And to the degree that I feel well physically, I think it helps my mental, attitude about all of this. So I don't want to lose sleep over this. I don't want to be, binging on anything and oh, let me, drink, I don't know, 10 glasses of wine, and, that'll make all of this appear, feel better. It's just like, I just want to like be well and in a good position to receive the good stuff that's coming at me, and also to continue to pour it out. So anyway, mindset, attitude, my actions, all of that is rooted in trying to maintain positive, real positive attitude, to try and, leverage my network. I have a pretty big network. I'm blessed in that regard. And I have, over the years, people reach out to me and they're like, can I meet with you? Can I get help with this? Can you talk to me about what it's like to be Latina in tech? Can you give me some advice? Because I feel stuck. Can you talk to me about how to self-promote? Like people have reach out to me about many things over the years. And I finally feel like I'm cashing in my chips. Every time that happened, I got a chip. Now I'm cashing in. I'm like, okay, what could my network do for me? And so I'll tell you what my network has been doing for me. I've gotten I think over 10 recommendations over the last like 2 weeks, which is amazing. I've gotten a slew, over 100 endorsements. I've gotten people sending me jobs. I got someone that works on LinkedIn offered me a free subscription to LinkedIn Premium. So I got that for the next 6 months. Someone I know that lives in Europe is working on his coaching license and so certification. So I'm actually getting free coaching from him as part of this. So someone in Luxembourg, I've never even been to Luxembourg, but I have a connection there, and I'm getting that opportunity. And just so many other, people have either offered or have graciously accepted when I've reached out and said, hey, I applied for a job at your company. Would you connect me to the hiring manager? Can I forward you my resume for you to pass along? And people, I'm getting a lot of yeses, Alan, and I'm so grateful and thankful that I can lean in on my network right now, because I really need them.
Yeah. And looking at your network on LinkedIn, now it's approaching 8,000. I'm guessing it probably increased a lot over the last couple of weeks. But even before the last couple of weeks, it sounds like you had a pretty strong network that you've built, invested in, not even invest in, but just sounds like you've helped other people out along the way. And there's a proverb that says, dig the well before you're thirsty. So
I got something to say about that. I agree. And I feel like, I do know firsthand that some people got caught very off guard by this and were not prepared. And I feel like I count myself in one of the lucky, fortunate, blessed people that was prepared, meaning like I had updated my resume last year, so it was pretty easy to get that up and running. I had invested a lot of time on my LinkedIn profile for many months, and maybe even more than a year. I didn't get to where I am, by chance. It was a lot of strategy, planning, being very proactive in that regard, and also offering, just offering to people like, yeah, I'm happy to help you if you feel stuck, if you're an ERG leader, you want to talk about your ERG, if you work in DEI and you want to talk about that. Like, I always put myself out there, not expecting anything in return, but just like giving it to people because I had it to give. And now, I have the opportunity. Like I said, I kind of half joking that I'm cashing in, but like now I can go back and say, can you help me? Because I know well, first of all, you have to ask for help in situations like this. So you have to humble yourself and be like, I need help. I'm not going to be able to do this by myself. So it is going to take the village to get me employed again. But also that, I know that I graciously help people, and I know that there's other people out there that are willing to do the same. But I need to make it known that I need that help. And so I'm out there, hitting the pavement and asking for support and help and anything that I need. And I try to think of things that I need and ask different people for different things.
So that's some sick advice there. And so you, yes.
Ding, ding, ding,
You,
ding, 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 ding. I wish I had a cowbell.
I know I should invest in a cowbell for up our special effects here. But you were always prepared. You had your resume updated. You focused on your LinkedIn. You might not have been as focused on it as you are now, but you were focused on it. Your LinkedIn profile looked solid, and you were just generous with your time. So when people came inbound to you, you were just helpful to them. And like you say, I don't think you were doing this with the intent of cashing in, but whether it's karma, whether it's just like if you ever read Adam Grant's book about give and take, that people are either givers, takers, or transactional in some sort of way. But it sounds like you were a giver. And there's lots of research actually that people that are givers, it turns out better for them in the long run. And my hunch is you're going to land not only in a good spot, but a better spot because of your attitude, because of what you've done to prepare for what can happen to anybody. Everybody is employed at will. Well, not everybody. Most people in the United States are employed at will. Most people around the world are to some extent as well, although there's different, I guess, periods of time that it takes a company to terminate someone. But so it sounds like you're making good traction. Sounds like your calendar is quite full, which is
Yeah, and Alan, can I just say one more thing? The other thing that I feel like I was prepared with is just also like taking care of myself. So that's not a new
yeah,
practice to me either. Like I walk a lot, I drink a lot of water, I eat well. I eat to to maintain a good like a nice clear mind. I stay away from certain types of food. I focus on certain types of food. I just, I get regular massages. I take care of myself, and I feel like so when this hit, it wasn't like, oh my God. It was like, okay, Hadi, you're gonna have to take extra care of yourself now. What do you need to do? Maybe you need to go on more walks. Maybe you need to sleep more. Maybe you need to, fill in the blank. But like I'm taking care of myself too, and I think that's really important now too. I would urge people to really be focused on that as well. That's an important part of this because might be a long ride. We don't really know when this is going to be over, and we need to like be prepared for a long journey that maybe gets cut short and we get a job sooner. But if we're still doing this 6 months down the line, we need to be very invested in making sure we're taking care of ourselves as
yeah.
we take this on.
And that's some sick advice too that I fail to focus on. Focus on your body, focus on your mind, get the sleep, get the rest. Like you need those core elements so that you can focus on what you need to do now. Hustle
And stay
talk to people.
positive. Yeah, and
Yes,
stay positive.
it's
You
mindset.
can't
Mindset.
don't get to that, don't let yourself go to that dark place. Do whatever you can to like release those endorphins, those feel good endorphins, and stay in a good place.
Awesome. So let's pivot a little bit. So I want to. Not only was I shocked that you got promoted, well, twice in 2 years, and again, that is extremely rare. Like I've managed lots of people, I've promoted lots of people. It is really rare to see someone on such a great upward trajectory. Then also, let's talk about the equality part because this kind of bugs me. I'm a white dude for people that can't see me on the screen, but I'm a pasty white dude. But
a good ally, Alan, from what I know of you so far, you are walking the walk and you're quite an active ally. So thank you for that. You should get a shout out for that.
I appreciate that. I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very inspired by Ibram Kendi, Kendi's work about how to be an anti-racist, and
Good.
I'm doing my part. I can always do more, but it's not about me. But so this is, if anyone goes and types in equality.com, Salesforce bought that URL. I don't know if people are aware of that, but when you go to equality.com, you come to this big splashy page where Salesforce says, we believe in equality for all. They have this big splashy page here. All these multicultural people, which by the way, I rarely saw those people in my time at Salesforce. Then you see this really touching video. They played this, I think, at one of the sales kickoff meetings. And it was a great video. I encourage people to do that. Then you start to look at their goals. And they're like, are their goals 50% of underrepresented groups and 40% of women? Then you start looking at the actual numbers. And this is where the rubber hits the road. Mm-hmm. And you look in here, and you're a Latina woman. 5.3% of all of Salesforce employees are Latinx. And for people that don't know, in the U.S., 18.5% of the U.S. population is considered Latinx.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, please do.
Just wanted to put a little asterisk there and say self-identified as such, yes, because this data is very dependent on people self-identifying. So that number could be different. Could actually be, there could be more, but they haven't self-identified, and this data is very reliant on that. So just wanted to put a little asterisk there. It could be more
or it could be less. I think you can make an argument that people would underreport or people would overreport. Do you have a hypothesis that number, like, yes, it is self-reported. Like I got this survey as an employee and I could have checked any box I wanted to.
Correct.
Or I could have
chose not to. Correct, yeah. Not to disclose. And anybody who works in DEI knows that this is a very important aspect of the metrics, and measuring impact is getting people to self-identify, because we can't say, oh, you're this or you're that, or it's like whatever I identify as is what, gets counted, so to speak. And so that's an important just part of this conversation. But
Totally true.
please continue, because these
No.
are the numbers we have. So these are the numbers we work with. So there's still a huge discrepancy between the 18 point whatever and 5.3.
Yes. And just from your perspective, do you think this number is underrepresented or overrepresented? Because, like, I don't know if you have a hunch. I don't know if there's any data to prove it one way or the other.
That's so hard. It's so just so you know, this is an important thing for everybody in the whole world to know. That is private. That is not something that I can't go back and say, oh, this is what Alan said. That's what Hadi said. That's what this other person said. This is stuff that is like protected, secure, anonymous, and there's no way to know what anyone answered. And there's really no way to know if it's under or over represented in any way. So I don't even have a hunch. I wouldn't gander at a hunch, because there's just no way to know, to be honest.
So I think it's a fair point that the data might be imperfect, but it's the best that we have to work with.
Yeah, it's what we have.
And then you told me this before we got on the podcast, to take a closer look. And what you said, so you had the 5.3% of Latinx employees, but then when you dig in, and by the way, when you have the intersectionality of Latinx and women are only 40% of the Latinx. So you've multiplied 40% by 5.3, you're talking about 2.6% Latino women at Salesforce, which is putrid.
It's all roles. That's the tab we're on. We're in the all roles tab. And I said, we should go to the leadership tab and see what that number is.
Yes. And let's look there. So we're at 5.3% and we're at 40% women. So let's click. And first off, kudos to Salesforce for making this public and being accountable here, because there's a lot of organizations that don't make this public.
And it's also 2021 data that we're looking at, because they publish this annually, and the 2022 data won't be available until February 1st and beyond. Right. So this is a little dated, but again, the best we have to work with and look at.
Yeah, and the data here is through January 2022. So it's
because
probably FY22.
That's when the fiscal year. Yep, that's the fiscal year. Yeah.
So we're at 5.3% and 40% women that are Latina women. And then let's look at leadership. 3%. It's still the 40%, but 3%. So as you go up the pyramid, it becomes even worse. And if you look at the black side as well, it was 4.8%. And then you go to leadership and it cuts down to 3.4%. So
yeah, and if you go to non-technical roles, you'll also notice that we're probably a little overrepresented in those non-technical roles.
Yes.
Surprise.
And underrepresented in the tech roles.
That's right.
So, yeah. So let's get away from the numbers here a little bit. But what we're seeing is, however you slice and dice the data, there are huge discrepancies in the mix of population.
Opportunities. Lots of opportunity.
And it's not just Salesforce. Like, it's very similar if you look at Google and Meta. So I'm not picking on Salesforce here, although it does stick in my craw a little bit that they're a company that focuses so much on equality that they have it as one of their values. I think they added that to their values a few years back. They used to have 3 values, then they went to 4, now they have 5 because they put climate.
They actually have 6.
Well.
There's one more. There's sustainability is the last.
Sustainability is the 6th one. Okay, so I missed one, but I know it's like cut. We don't need to go into all those values. But what really upset me, and it's not my story, it's your story. But like, I was telling this story to my wife, that how the hell, when it's so hard for these organizations to find great underrepresented talent, and then they have these layoffs. I'm not saying to keep you necessarily because you're Latina, but keep you because you're a damn high performer, and you're also in this bucket that is dramatically underrepresented. So I don't know. I got pretty pissed off when I heard that, and it's not my story to be pissed off about. But
I'm glad you got pissed off. That means you get it. You know, like, more people should be pissed off about a lot of the situations that have come to bear as a result of these layoffs. There, there's a lot of stories like mine, I think, that are out there.
And not only were you impacted, but your role, what was your role at Salesforce? What was your responsibility at Salesforce, like when you left?
Yeah, so I was the head of equality at Slack, and that was the most recently acquired company by Salesforce. And so I was responsible for really harmonizing our equality efforts. So Slack was doing stuff around equality, Salesforce was doing stuff around equality, and it was my job really to bring, marry the two, bring it together. And so there was a lot of work and that I was doing in that regard. Bringing the ERGs together was the primary focus, but there
And
were
And ERGs
other
are
initiatives
employee
underway.
resource groups. For people that
Yep.
are not familiar, it's groups within large organizations of similar affinity groups like Latin, Black, Native American.
Queer.
Yeah, there was Jewish one. I think there was like a member of the tribe one at Salesforce I was part of. When I was at
Oh,
Google, they had Black Google Network. So a lot of these organizations have these organizations. But you were someone who was focused. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say just so people know, I always describe them for people who don't know what an ERG is as a club. It's like a club. But more importantly, so much more importantly than being a club, because that doesn't really capture the essence of it. It's really where it's people's home base. So when you are the first or the few or the only that enters a space, and it's like, I don't see anybody here that looks like me or that has my lived experience. These are the home bases that employees go to say, oh, okay, here's the other Latinx people at Salesforce. This is like my familia, and they speak Spanish, and like they listen to salsa, and they grew up eating the same things as me, and like we can talk Spanglish, and all of that all those things. That's what it kind of represents to me. And I think for there's lots of different groups, like we just said earlier, and so people find people that have those common shared experiences and give them like a little bit of like familiarity, and it's a safe space. It turns those are some of the
Yeah.
safest spaces that you'll find at a company.
Which is really important when you're someone in the minority. So there's only 5.3% of Latinx at Salesforce. So you're looking around, 19 out of 20 people do not look like you. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of have a little support, have a little shared experience versus like for me as a white dude, I can look left and right and I can see them all over the place. Right, they didn't have a white dude ERG. Um,
No, but the white dudes were invited to join all of our
and
ERGs. I always said we love allies. That's allyship is an important part of the DEI work that it has to get done
yeah,
anywhere. And allyship is a journey, and being part of an ERG and listening and learning from the lived experiences of other people. That you can learn a lot by doing that.
yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
hopefully all the white dudes listening are thinking of or doing already doing this.
I was a member of Latino Force, and actually during COVID, they sent me a COVID mask, like a mask to use, which is actually a great mask. It was a really
Love
nice
to hear
swag.
it. I love
I
to
was
hear it, Alan. You're
Yeah,
you're my hero.
yeah. Well, you don't know me well enough, but anyway. But like we're running low on time here, but I just like you've had such a positive attitude through this whole thing. How do you maintain that, and what advice do you have for others dealing with two things? One, someone who I would say unfairly like were laid off without rational reason. Like, yeah, what advice do you have for people that have been laid off? And there's 59,000 people at like the big five tech companies, and there's plenty of others, smaller tech companies that are laid off for no rhyme or for presumably no rhyme or reason. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say that your mindset is going to be really important right now. So be very intentional about staying positive around surrounding yourself with positivity, whether that's people, whether that's affirmations, whether that's prayer, whether that's I don't know, whatever it is, your mom telling you you're great. I don't know, whatever keeps you positive. Be quite intentional about that, and likewise know what the triggers are and try and stay away from anything that might be triggering and get you to a bad place. I have a colleague, a friend of mine who also got laid off, and he was like, I just couldn't look at the posts anymore on LinkedIn. It was like literally, it was like making me feel like I was going to be sick of just reading over like one day after the other. It was Amazon and Google and this one and LinkedIn and Microsoft, and it was just like I can't anymore. And so just know when you need to shut it down, literally, and just be like, I don't want to look at this anymore. I need a little break or a timeout or space or whatever it is. And just go back to that place and that mindset that is going to help you. And I would also say, take a break if you need it. So if like one day you're just like tired, because you're hustling. I mean, I know I am, to trying to get a new job. So if you're working really hard, I try to give myself Fridays off. So I'm looking forward to having Friday off to get a little time for myself. Take the time, take a break when you need it, and then just re-engage when you're feeling ready and re-energized, and when your battery's full and you're feeling positive again, and step right back into it. And do some things that are fun. I'm trying to do fun things. I've been working on a puzzle. I like puzzles. I never have time for them. So I've been working on a puzzle. I'm going to like this like dance event tomorrow night, which I'm really excited about, related to a podcast that I listen to. And then I'm going on a wellness retreat next week, which I'm so excited about. I'm getting a massage. It's going to be like guided meditation, organic food, and I'm being like really good to myself right now. And that is also lifting my spirits and making me feel nice, is making me feel good.
Awesome. And that is more sick advice. You've just been dropping so much sick advice left and right. So let me just ask one. I usually ask people for like, what's the last piece of sick advice that they have? I don't know if you have any more. If you have one more piece of sick advice to share with Acceleration Nation, I'd love to hear it. Do you have anything else for people that are in this job market where 59,000 talented individuals like yourself are out there? There's other people that are out there as well. Besides a mindset, besides taking care of yourself, what are some of the proactive actions that you're taking? And like to reach out to people to re-engage your network?
Yeah.
Anything there to share?
I would say it's the time to bet on yourself. If you have ever, been wondering like, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about doing this, but I'm afraid, nervous, not sure, indecisive. This is the time to bet on yourself, explore other options, keep an open attitude about like what that next job might look like. Maybe it's not going to be what you think it is. Maybe being a CSM again is not what you should be doing. Maybe you should be thinking about sales, or maybe you should be considering other things. I would just say like, now is the time to bet on yourself, as opposed to like giving up and being like, woe is me. And, this is not, what happened is not personal. Don't make it personal. Reflect on all of the great achievements and things you've accomplished. Now is the time to talk about how remarkable you are, and how great you are, and what makes you special, and what your superpowers are, and the very unique things that you bring to the table. Now is the time to focus on that and not be shy about self-promoting accordingly. Like I took an I Am Remarkable class with Google, and I was also an I Am Remarkable facilitator. And in that class, you learn to build that muscle about like how to talk about yourself in a positive way, because people are not going to know about these things about you unless you tell them. And I learned that valuable lesson when I was a CSM. I would meet new customers for the first time, and I'm like, I'm Hadi. I wouldn't even talk about like what experience I had. And then like my account execs were like, I used to work at Goldman, and then I worked over here, and I was at Deutsche Bank, and I know the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. And I'm like, oh, wait, I need to do that. I'm like, I know that I have that too. So I was like, okay, now I can talk about this. I'm like, I worked at JP Morgan Chase. I worked at BNY Mellon. I held my Series 7. I was a certified mortgage banker. I have things that I could talk about too. And some communities and some cultures don't do that. And people need to learn how to do that. And I would say, if you are one of those people who doesn't know how to self-promote, take the I Am Remarkable course that's offered by Google. It's free, and learn how to self-promote, because this is the time you want to build that muscle, and you want to like keep doing that. You want to start practicing now if you're not somebody who knows how to do that, and then you want to really dig your feet in and just continue to do this, because this is something we should always be doing all the time.
Yep. And that's great. And we'll drop that in the show notes. But the website for folks listening at home is I Am Remarkable, IamRemarkable.withgoogle.com. So that's what it is. I actually have a friend who's a facilitator of that as well, and she has said great things about it. And now it's great to hear someone that's been through that course as well. And it is free. It's awesome. Well, I've heard it's awesome, and now you are confirming
Especially
it
for
is.
women and people of color,
Yes.
and underrepresented people. I would include like all underrepresented people that they I think are the ones that would get the most benefit from this, because there's a lot of people who already do this, Alan, and don't need to be told, like just naturally do this. But like if you're not doing it, it makes you look bad. So you have to like be in it type thing. You gotta. This is how we compete in this day and age, is by talking about ourselves and saying, letting people know the things that we've accomplished and achieved.
Yeah, like my mom used to tell me, and I think she actually sent me to a therapist when I was younger about this, that I needed to learn how to toot my own horn.
That's sick advice. That's
Yeah,
it.
cool. So, last question, and it's a bummer that we got to wrap this up, but we do have to wrap it up. Where can
Okay.
people find you? I have a hint where they can find you, but let me know if people want to reach out to
Yeah.
Hadi, where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you are on LinkedIn, I am too. I'm Hadi Mendez, and my name is spelled Hady. And if you do that and look, and then just start typing the M, I think you'll find me right away. I think I'm the only Hadi, or one of the few Hadis. I'm definitely the only Hadi Mendez, so for sure you'll find me there. I'm also on Instagram, but on Instagram I actually share and post street art pictures, because I'm an amateur street art photographer. So
Oh,
that is
nice.
where I share my street art photos from all over the world. So if and that's a nice way also for me to just balance myself and how I think, because it's like street art pictures are so easy, they're free, they're fun. It's like exciting when you find like a new piece of street art. If you like see a picture or something drawn by like one of your favorite muralists or artists, like it's like just like a fun, different, completely different part of my brain and being. And so that's what I do on Instagram. So it's like two different, completely different
Yeah,
vibes, but feel free to follow me on both.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your inspiration. Like just seeing your story on LinkedIn led me to reach out to you, and then you and I have chatted a bunch and gotten to know you, and maybe I'll see you in the hood also. So both
Yeah,
live in
I
Kings
hope to
County.
have I hope to have an Allen sighting one day soon.
Yes. Awesome. So we'll end the show here. And I'm really glad that our paths have crossed and looking forward to watching you land your next opportunity. And I can't wait to see who is going to be fortunate enough to have your amazing skills, mindset, background, and experience.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that.